Good morning and welcome to the program Perspectives. This morning on Perspectives, we'll be looking at Nigeria and economy. Now, more than any other time, Nigeria is going through its, hard times too. People complain that no jobs, prices at the market are going, on the high. And of course, looking at it again, the other problems that we're facing today, insecurity. And of course, to say that, leadership is being put in the fore. Now, that purposeful leadership and visionary leadership may be what we require to get Nigeria going again. We're looking at the economy and how much we can do to push the economy forward. And of course, tagging it as rejigging the Nigeria's economy. Wow. Again, we've gone through recessions, and of course, COVID-19 had not helped the world over on the economy. And so the things that we have to do, to get Nigeria out of the woods. Sharing thoughts with me this morning, I'll be bringing in Professor Yusuf Nkofa, a professor of law at Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. Professor Yusuf Nkofa, good morning, and glad to have you on the show today.
Good morning, Mr. Tony Alabi, and good morning to our esteemed listeners. Glad to be back again.
Okay, glad to have you back again, sir. And again, the economy and there's so much that Nigerians want, for the economy to improve. Oil prices have gone down. We know that it's not what it used to be. And of course, we've talked about diversifying the economy and making Nigeria work again. The giant of Africa, and for some people, the giant may be sleeping, but time to wake it up and get Nigerians talking about good times again. For you, rejigging the economy, what areas and what are we looking at here?
Yeah, thank you very much. Most crucial to the life of any citizen of any state is the economy, because that is the area in which development and prosperity, comes to the fore. And Nigeria, it is not prospering. As a matter of fact, it's underdeveloped with mass poverty, which means the economy, is so sluggish that it's not been able to create prosperity for the people. And that is why, people are in penury. And it is unfortunate that with the kind of humongous resources that we have and also human capital, we have not been able to harness our God-given benefits for the advancement of our people. And government too has been unable to articulate effective economic outlay, that will assist in conferring welfare onto the people. So, as it is, we're in a state of, quandary. The economy is in doldrums, and there's joblessness, there's infrastructural decay, there's capital flight, and there is low or non-existent productivity, which means, as is today, we're a consumerist economy, we're a consumerist nation, contingent on a monocultural economy. And the danger is that when you are import dependent, when you are just a consumerist group of people, you are enhancing the economy of other countries that bring in goods to you. And you are even creating employment opportunities for their people. So we must first of all, divest ourselves from this consumerism attitude and try to see how to establish a productive base for Nigeria. And when you are talking about establishing a productive base for Nigeria, you are talking about industrialization. That is, let local industry, prosper. Let us produce our goods. And when we produce our goods, we try and produce in excess so that we can sell, and that will make us prosper. By the time we produce our needs, our goods, which means the country now becomes productive. The masses of our youth, the teeming youth that are unemployed will not be employed. And in the process, we'll be able to add value in terms of enterprise. So by the time we began to look into an enterprise venture, we allow local economy, to get on stream, and we close our borders. One, we have a market, within us. Two, for export, we have market within the African sub-region. So essentially, the only key to us rejigging our economy is for the planners of the economy, to articulate a Marshall Plan in which industries, will be supported. So we have development, banks that can kickstart this. We have Bank of Industries, we have Bank of Agriculture, we have enterprise banks. Government should put in fund into these banks. The money we get from the crude, some sizable portion should be put into these development banks that will now identify, local businessmen. For example, in the area of agroeconomy, merchants should be identified and supported. We have Bank of Industries. In other areas of economy, maybe manufacturing or other industrial base, the government should identify, people who are exceedingly serious in terms of this enterprise and support them, because that is how economies grow over the world. Bank support industrialization. So with low interest base that these development banks has, and also the counterpart commercial banks, if they can pour in capital and identify merchants who are committed, to developing this country through enterprise, you realize that will be the beginning of prosperity in Nigeria. This argument that we just have to look for foreign capital is a ruse. How many foreigners will bring in capital to develop your country? And if they do, don't forget that in itself would endanger capital flight. For example, look at the area of aviation, international aviation, where Nigeria does not have a national carrier. Nigeria spend close to $3 billion annually, on international flight that profits international aviation carriers. So that's what we're saying. When you allow foreigners to come and start operating your economy, you are not developing your economy. You are simply expropriating your resources outside the country. You are warehousing your own resources. So the $3 billion that Nigeria spend annually on international travels, if Nigeria had its own international carrier, it will benefit from this, capital, and engage Nigerians in terms of employment and prosperity. Look at the area of seeking for medical health abroad, medical tourism. Annually, too, Nigeria spend close to $1 billion, for medical tourism, and yet we don't have, medical infrastructures, medical facilities that will operate in Nigeria and also create wealth in Nigeria and employ Nigeria. And look at for example, the Turkish hospital in Abuja. These are established by foreigners, whereby they charge Nigerians who won't just amount of money for medical services, and they plow this money back to their country. When it comes to food imports too, Nigerians annually we spend $5 billion on importation of food. The raw materials that we can plant in Nigeria, we have the land base, we have the land mass, we have the topography, we have the weather, yet we spend $5 billion to import food annually. Look at the milk industry, dairy industry. We spend $1.5 billion, dollars annually too to import dairy products to Nigeria. So what we're saying is that we are not helping local industry to grow. If our own country can establish industries through grants by government, for example, in the dairy products, we have the cattle, we have the topography, we have the manpower, we have the population. So if government can look into these issues and close the border, that's why I supported the Buhari administration's closure of border earlier, in its administration, because that is how China, for example, grew. China closed its borders, of course, having sent some of its nationals abroad to study, to embrace technology and development. They came back, closed the borders, and started massive industrialization, producing what they want. And because of the advantage of population, China was able to stabilize And now China is now engaged in an expansionist economic agenda to sell its wares to the world, especially third world countries. So to reject the economy, we must have to, get away from this monoculturalism in terms of the economy, where oil that we are relying on is trying to be, to become useless in the world, because we now have alternative to oil. You have biogas, biodiversity, you have also nuclear. So alternatives are being brought out to downplay the criticalness of oil. So if Nigeria, like you said, do not think of diversification, at least the extractive industry, the minerals that we have minerals in this country that can support our country. But of course, government has been paying lip service to the prospect of developing the extractive industry.
And Prof, let me bring you up too with talking about Nigeria as a consumer nation. We've seen government, this administration, through the Bank of Industries, has been giving out loans, for local development. We've seen the trader money, loans to the anchor borrowers scheme under the Bank of Agriculture, and all of that. Government trying to cushion the effect of the low income of earners. So all of this money that has been pumped into the economy, you're not satisfied in any way with how much it can go to bring us out of the woods.
Some of these palliatives are short-term palliatives, which will not, in the long run, establish a viable industrial base for Nigeria. For example, trader money. Trader money is an act of tokenism, where you go and meet market women, give them 10,000 naira. It's an act of tokenism. The anchor borrowing scheme is also an act of tokenism, because you are identifying, the weak, to come and establish an industrial base. It doesn't work like that. You have to look at massive industrialization, where, genuine businessmen that can be identified can be supported with loans in millions. For example, what's wrong in government looking at, one of the most important critical element of industrialization is our this textile industry. I mean, we've seen it work before. I mean, Kaduna used to be a hub for such textile industry, Funtua, Lagos, Ibadan, and we have the cotton. Okay, these industries are there. We know the promoters. So why don't you support them? Bank of Industries, give them billions to kickstart this industry, modernize their infrastructures, and their machineries, and also, support the growth of cotton, in consonance with the expectation of the functionality of the industries. And with that, you kickstart an industrial base in that sector. It runs pari passu with agriculture and also machinery. So this example you're giving is an act of tokenism, which does not address the real problems. It's just a temporary so-call for people. But we are saying that, look, a productive base means massive industrialization in large scale. The amount of money that the elite steal and warehouse abroad is enough, to kickstart this, not to start giving the informal class, 10,000 naira. Of course, I agree that the economy itself is divisible into two segments: the formal economy and the informal economy. But the mass employment and mass regeneration of wealth, it does not. It's only for daily sustainers. For example, the market woman you give 10,000 naira to will simply go and buy tomato for 10,000 and place it on a shop to resell. So yes, that can temporarily solve the problem. But when you are talking of creating prosperity, wealth, and economic development, it goes beyond this act of tokenism.
Well, Prof, again, I like to bring you, I'll take you back to the 70s. This time I look at Steyr Motors in Bauchi, Volkswagen in Lagos, Peugeot Automobile here in Kaduna, and Namco in Anambra. The textile industries that you've talked about. We've seen all of these, gradually, big companies have left the shores of Nigeria, and today we can't seem to get it right or bring them back. And so, who takes the lead in all of this? You've talked about government, but we're talking about look at public-private, partnership. How much of it have we seen into bringing the big industries back or industrializing the nation?
Yes, but government must put down, the baseline. Government must put down the enabling environment for the private sector to thrive.
With
And that's what we're
insecurity
saying.
much with us or around us, all of these, how can we grow business here?
Yes, that's what we're saying. Government must put down the baseline, to support, to produce the enabling environment for private sector to thrive. Where there's insecurity, one, where government also do not support, the development banks. For example, how much has been appropriated to Bank of Agriculture, for the past 5 years? Little or nothing. The Bank of Industries, the enterprise banks, so the enabling environment must put in place. One, security. Two, loans that will not come with hyper double-digit interest, loans that will be minimal, that will be realistic, and the moratorium, of repayment will be long. So when government itself do not invest in this critical sector, but just go about, trying to promote service industries. Yes, service industries can support an economy, but not as much as an industrial base. And if you look at countries that have diverted to service industry, like United Kingdom, they had over 4,000 or 5,000 years of industrialization, in which they've already stabilized their economy, and also made sure that the industrial base of the economy is so solid that migrating to service-based economy will not hurt that segment. But as a transitional economy in Nigeria, a developing economy that has no industrial base, so the most critical thing for us in terms of development is to establish that industrial base, which means 70% of the capital of the nation must be poured into industry. As it is now, Nigeria does not even have money. We continue to borrow money to pay salaries. So you see, that's the danger. There's no harm in borrowing money, from Western creditors. But when you borrow money, you must make sure that you appropriate those money to or apply them to the critical sectors of the economy, which will generate wealth and to assist you to repay these loans. So the private sector in Nigeria is moribund. They are nothing but an appendage, stooge, or collaborators with the public sector in terms of contract, and over invoicing. So what the private sector merely does is to allow with the public sector, that is the government, to become contractors and get money to operate the service industry, banks, mobile technologies, all those things. But the real critical issue is how can this private sector partner with government, get capital, and entrench an industrial base in which there will be productivity. We'll produce our food, we'll produce some of our machineries, we'll produce our chairs, we'll produce our furnitures, we'll produce our own needs, and alongside make sure that we enhance human capital, human capacity. They'll be able to do this. We must have engineers, we must have thoroughbreds, engineers, we must have architects rather. We must also, alongside an attempt to develop our industrial base, develop our human capital to the extent that we have professional, expert, technology, technicians. So our universities must be supported in terms of this industrial base to give us the human capital. Our polytechnics, our monotechnics, so is the entire gamut of this industrialization is wide. The entire gamut of this industrialization base is so wide, and it is imperative that government must start early, or else we will continue to be a beggar nation, thinking that the only way out is for foreigners to come and develop our country. That is not impossible. That is impossible. That's not correct. They are businessmen. They want profit. When they bring in cash to your country, what they do is to take away your resources, expropriate them, warehouse them abroad, endanger capital flight, and exploit your own labor. Exploiting your labor. So at times, when government even engages in a kind of MOU partnership with foreigners, for example, China, okay, come and develop our rail industry, and let's agree on funding. We'll support you. We support the project with our counterpart funding. And China comes. It comes with its money, yes. It also comes with manpower. So we should say no. China, if you come with your manpower, they should come and stay for a short time, transfer that technology, that know-how onto our people. Not that you come and will come with your human capital till the end of the contract, till the duration of the contract, and essentially our own people will not be able to have the opportunity to be employed or engaged. So I mean, we just have to, our government have to be proactive.
Yeah,
have to really engage
Prof,
in critical
I also
thinking.
want to bring you into this and to ask the question. So what has happened to that? The National Planning Ministry, we once had that, and national planning would mean planning for, projecting into the future what we want to do, where we want to get, how we want to get it done. That has, gone out now. And then we'll talk about elections. We're in a democratic process now where, elections are made after every 4 years, new people to come in, or, the old ones to stay for 2 terms or tenures, so to say. So with national planning, how that can get us into, some of the projections we are making here.
Yeah, you are very correct, because the role of a national planning in terms of the economy cannot be underestimated. It is very important, and this national planning should go beyond annual budget. We used to have 10 years rolling plan. We used to have vision, an established economic vision that will span a decade, So yes, but the problem is that, does the Nigerian government has the political will? Because most of these, ideas projected, even our projects, tend to be basically semantics, or centered around, the interests of the political class. You find a budget and realize that close to 70% of the funding or the proposed spending, is for the recurrent expenditure of the political class, the public sector. And you realize that little or nothing is being spent on development, situations. For example, the President of UNESCO has a threshold that it gives for member nations, in terms of budgetary provisions for education, which should be 26% of their budgets. In Nigeria, do we adopt the UNESCO, formula? No. At state and federal level, you have only maybe 6% allocated for education. For other development infrastructure, for health, how much do we appropriate? So I agree that a rolling, a master plan of what 10, 20 years, of an economic outlay, should be adopted, which will go beyond semantics or theory, which will be such that the political class have the will, to make sure that they follow up to the letter. So I think, the entire issue, of lack of development, at least at the level of the economy, even political, is because the political class do not have the will, to develop this nation. They have compromised, on their role as government, that is to provide welfare and security for the people. You see, without security, there cannot be welfare, and without welfare, there will be insecurity. So I think that unless until we get a committed leadership, a transactional leadership that is interested in the goal of development, that will try to maximize the advantage of the vast economists that we have, arrays of intellectuals in the area of economy, come down, develop a homegrown agenda like the Abacha administration did. Develop a homegrown agenda, because we have to detach ourselves from this, Western capitalist idea of development that is tied to their own standard. And that is the problem of our leaders. They think that development is all about adopting Western standard. No, we have seen how China did it. We have seen how other Asian tigers did it. Even Rwanda here, how she's doing it. So you have to make sure that you use your own resources, God-given resources, even if it's low, to make sure that you trigger industrialization through the private sector. I agree. And we have so many Nigerians with that capacity, with the capacity and capabilities. So yes, national plan for 10, 15 years, but it's a national plan that must not be on paper exclusively. That must be based on illusion. That must be based on something that is not practical. It must be based on an ideal that the leadership class must follow to the letter. Because the problem is there's always lack of political will. On paper, we have so many, solutions to our problems, be they political, economic, and social. Vast numbers of treasures, documents are there for us to access on how to solve the problem. Yes, but the problem is a political class that continue to engage in political brigandage. Can they solve this problem? So until we change our political perspective from being political merchants to transformational leaders, because as it is now, the leadership class is nothing but the political merchants. They are mercantilistic. They are predatory on the national economy. They are opportunistic people. So unless and until we find people who are patriotic, nationalists, and transformational, and also transactional, these are the set of people that will make sure that those theories are being turned into empirical realities.
Okay, Prof. We'll have to go for a commercial break. The program is Perspectives this morning, and we're focusing on rejigging the Nigerian economy. And sharing thoughts with us on that, Professor Yusuf Nkufa, Professor of Law, Ahmadu Bello University, on the line with us. We'll come back after this break.
Wake up.
Let's wake up.
Good morning, everybody.
And what a beautiful morning it is.
Smell the coffee.
Let's get started, shall we?
Wake up and smell the coffee. On the Coffee Morning Drive, 98.9 in Victor FM.
Welcome back. Is the program Perspectives this morning. It's reaching you on Invicta 98.9, and we're looking at rejigging the economy, Nigeria's economy. And Professor Yusuf Nkufa, Professor of Law, with us on the line. Prof, welcome back.
Thank you very much.
Yes, Prof, I'd just like to take you back again. I want to tie this up with some of the things you have mentioned about political will. I want to go to the National Advisory, Committee on Economy, or the National Economic Committee that, successive regimes have set up. But sometimes, with this administration, we ask the question, what has been their input? Where are they? What are we getting from them? We're not getting anything. And then we'll talk about the political parties. The ideology of these parties, Nigerians just do not know, their drive, their focus, and their vision. Is all this compounding the issue of not, having a political will in dealing with the economy of the country?
Absolutely. Those that are supposed to assist the president drive the economy under this regime are quite ineffective. Because it is very glaring, the collapse of Naira and the lack of, understanding on how to stem this slide, and the skyrocketing, prices of foodstuff, the general loss of purchasing power by the people, and also the retrenchment going on in some states, And all this put together, coupled with the insecurity that, this government has been unable to tame, continue to reinforce the belief that this administration do not have the know-how, the capacity to address the myriads of economic problems. And, maybe some of them are fatigued, Some of them are fatigued because some of them are, have quite, shown how exemplary they could be when they were governors, when they held positions hitherto before this administration. So, essentially, poverty continues to get deepened, and that is a signal, because beyond the textbook analysis of economy, the reality on the ground is that people are being impoverished daily, and politicians are not assisting in solving the problem, because essentially the Nigerian political class see political party as merely vehicle to capture power and state resources, no more, no less. They did not see it as an instrument of development or delivering dividends onto the people. So the entire political character of the Nigerian elite is such that it geared towards state capture. And they see politics as an enterprise, as an industry. And that explains why you don't see or you don't have any form of political ideology, being exhibited by the practitioners. There's no political ideology, and that is why the two main political parties, happens to be a citadel of migration by its members, cross migration from PDP today, they move to APC tomorrow, vice versa. It clearly shows that it is a political system that's devoid of any ideology in terms of advancement. And when you go to the assemblies that are set, that are meant to be a check and balance, the kind of discourse that comes out of the assembly is such that it is not robust, it is not geared at the development of the people. As a matter of fact, they are so compromised and so they lean too much towards the executives. And in some states, you just can't be wondering, do they even have state assemblies at all? Because where anti-people's policies are being churned out and where you expect that the state assembly at least should stamp its feet and say, no, this is not good for the people. You realize that, mom would be the word. So the parliament, national and state assemblies, the Senate, they're supposed to act as the true, repository of, power of the people who have capitulated, they have abandoned the people, they have shaken their responsibility. And the fact that, politics is so mercantilistic meant that politicians will always be eager to look for money to address their political aspirations. And that is why for the 4-year term, of leadership, you realize that visibility of political activities is only within the first 2-3 years. The third or fourth year is for politicking, whereby governance is abandoned. So the nature of money politics and godfatherism that is at play in our political structure is such that politicians, continue to busy themselves on how to amass wealth and abandon the people. So, except we restructure our political, temperament, our political structure, our political system, in which probably we introduce independence candidature that will, sort of, downplay the excessive, materialism that comes with party politics. We might not get it right, because look at what it takes for somebody to become a senator, the cost implication of, how to become a senator in this country, how to become a member of the House of Representatives in this country, or how to become a governor. Coupled with the fact that because of the poverty that is foisted onto the people, the electorate have no voice, So the political class would always buy them off, money politics. So you realize that, it is a deliberate policy. The political class will make sure that, the dividend of democracy do not accrue to the masses, and therefore they are left hungry. And a hungry man does not understand any language apart from food. So he can easily be manipulated because he does not even understand the politics of the day, let alone demand for public accountability. So because politicians are never asked to account, so they just continue to operate, with impunity in the political arena and abandon, the trust that the state and constitution has given unto them to provide for the people. So, yes, because our political class are not bothered about growing the economy. That's why the economy continue, to collapse. And they are the culprit when it comes to economic disintegration, because they are the ones that engage in health, medical tourism, which masses can travel abroad for medical tourism. They are the ones that create, this kind of avenue in which state money will be used for themselves to advance their health, to advance their leisure, to advance their material their well-being. So when you have a political class that is feasting, on the economy, that is predatory on the economy, that is engaged in state capture the economy, capture the minds of the people, you realize that there can be no growth, because monument for growth has been taken by the elites, some of them using to build castles, houses, and some of them used in developing other countries, used to buy properties in other countries. So you could say from the cases around EFCC how much are being alleged, to be stolen by some of these political actors. We read it about 2 days ago that the former governor's 500 houses were seized. 500 houses were seized. What in this world would an individual want to do with the 500 house? So that is the character of the irresponsible Nigerian political class. And unless and until this trend is stopped, then we cannot move forward, because the monument for development, the monument to create growth, within the economy, have been pilfered, have been siphoned. In fact, they see Nigeria as a national cake meant for them. So where you have a political class that is being over-pampered by the state, over-indulged by the state, and you see that some of them are so lazy, they don't add value. For example, when you go to National Assembly, most of them spend half the time sleeping. They don't contribute towards any debate. So the argument that do we even need a bicameral legislature becomes very profound, because it's wastage. This money should be, push towards, an agenda for economic development for the people.
Yes, and you were talking still on economic development, and I'm sure you've mentioned that. I've heard you, go that direction. We recall that when this administration would come on board, it had told the Nigerian people that one of the things it was, going to focus attention on was on corruption. That is a monster that if we do not kill it, it could kill us. And of course, but again, the way it's going now, a lot of people are, have lost hope about fighting corruption. And so corruption in trying to, rejig the economy again, we may just be losing it here as long as we allow corruption to still thrive.
You see, fighting corruption itself, should be on a different, or it should be multitasking. One, the root of corruption should be addressed, and the consequences of corruption should be addressed. But what we normally do in Nigeria is to just scratch the surface and address the consequences of corruption. Yes, you can use the legal system to punish, but the issue is that if corruption has become a natural order, have become a value accepted by the people, then you must sit down and address that fundamental crisis. That why is corruption thriving? Why is an endorsement of corruption, even by the people? Why is an acceptance of corruption? Why would somebody that lives in a community, is jobless, and becomes a member of House of Assembly, comes back to that community, build the biggest house, and people endorse it? So these are the fundamentals. So where you have a kind of, social construct that is not fair to the people. So the next thing is that people will sabotage the system. So essentially, if we are to fight corruption, we must try to target the underlying basis for corruption. And of course, it will not be easy to, combat the consequences of corruption. So first and foremost, there should be a kind of national orientation, an ethical revolution, that will, antagonize wealth, that does not have any legitimate basis. Because the average Nigerian, even endorses, the position of wealthy Nigerians, without even trying to interrogate, how the source of the wealth. So where you have a citizenry that do not care about how you come across money, we even eulogize, their traducers, especially the political class and their cronies, the private sector. You see, they will eulogize their tormentors, their slave drivers. So you know that something is fundamentally wrong in terms of the habits and morality of those people. So corruption, yes, in all facets. The justice system, the political system, the academia, the health sector, importers, it has become, a fait accompli in the system where people will import, fake drugs or expired drugs into the country because of monetary gains, where the civil servant will refuse to do his work until he's being given some personal gains, where the university will not admit somebody despite his qualification until he goes through connection. So when you run a patronage system, and also a system that also allow, rentialism for the elites, I mean, corruption is just going to manifest in all gamut of life, and it's very difficult, to solve the problem. So that is why what is happening in Nigeria now is just scratching the surface. Every day, when you look at every day, corrupt people have been apprehended every day, and you begin to wonder. We thought that when legal system punishes, it hinders other prospective criminals, to commit crimes. But in Nigeria, it does not do that.
Okay,
so
bro. Time. We'll have to go to the audience now too. Get them, comments on what you'll be sharing with us, and of course, questions to ask too. And to be part of this conversation, join us on 081 40,000 989, 081 40,000 989, or 070 87 800 989, 070 87 800 989. Hello, good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, my prof.
Good morning.
Yes. All right, Kuri.
Honestly, the proverbs just say it all. You can just imagine anybody that goes there, he don't care about what we are passing through. He only cares about his family. Till we began to ask our politicians to give us accountability. Because I told you, I don't say bye-bye to politicians. Those that are just there for their own selfish interest. Honestly, I know what I passed through. I keep on telling you, politicians are the same thing. They can never change. But God will surely give us somebody that will take us there. Have a wonderful day. Thank you very much.
All right, Kuri, we got you on that. Still with your calls. Hello, good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Engineer Emmanuel.
Yeah, I want to ask a very simple question this morning. Our economy now, and when PDP was on board, this present administration says that they were not able to pay salary. I want to ask, how were they able to manage the situation that the common man can be able to feed at that their own time? Now compare it to this time. At that time, Mr. Tony Alabi, we are buying rice, the local rice, for 5,000 naira at that time. The foreign rice was for 8,500 naira, and they said they were not able to pay salary. But they were having proper economic scheme whatsoever. I don't know. The prof maybe you will answer that. Now let's come back to this present administration that says they want to fix our economy. Now when you look around, instead of people getting jobs in a daily basis, people are losing jobs at this present administration. Now look at our industry. Just as the prof says, they have all collapsed. For God's sake, I'm not against the infrastructure they claim to do, like the roads that we are seeing. But if all this industry like Arewa, Banted, Textile is open, Ajakuta and Steel, millions of people will be there. Now, let's come down. Closing the border, was it the way out, or it was the way that even put us more into food crisis? Now, look at the insecurity of a thing. People could not go to farm. I remember the other regime, people can go to farm and extend sleep in the farm. But this time around, even in your own house, you can't sleep. You can't go to farm. Why won't you have a food crisis? So at the other time, the CBN president, governor told us that millions of pounds of grain has been sent. Which market is in this country of ours or under country? What to do?
Okay. Engineer Emmanuel. All right. I will take one more call and then come back to the prof. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning, Sir Tony Alabi.
Good morning.
And good morning to your guest. Hello?
Yes, let's hear you.
I'm Comrade Gabriel, the exam. In fact, the professor has hit on what many of us are agitating for. If you look at closely, sir, about this textile industry, in fact, one of the states that was supplying us cotton was this Zamfara and Funtua. And our founding father, like Simon Bello, Sarona Sokoto, Dr. Nanda Zikwe, and Iboma Awolowo, the first thing the Sarona did was to establish textile here in the north. in 1952, closely followed by Aba Textiles and then Nigerian Textile Mill, Lagos. So unfortunately, most of this industry, the purpose was to make sure that they improve the economy and create jobs for Nigerians. And most of the clothes our people those days were wearing were alloy that is produced by Kaduna Textile Limited. But today, sir, almost 100 textile plus have closed. Nobody is saying anything at all. So we are also calling on the federal government of Nigeria. When any investment they are doing, let them think about the textile, because in 2014, even Jonathan asked Bank of Industry to release 100 billion to revamp the more details, and out of that money, 35 billion was released for Kaduna Textile here, but up to today, nothing is working at all. So we are calling on the federal government of Nigeria, let us think forwardly or inwardly to make sure that these textiles are reopened. They will create jobs and people will come out of the bush to come and work.
Okay.
That's the truth.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Comrade Gabriel. All right, Prof, over to you.
Please, you have to summarize.
Yes, Kure worried about accountability in government, and so we're not seeing enough of that. Engineer Emmanuel was talking about comparison with the last administration, that's the PDP, and what we're having now, that people could feed themselves. But what do we have today? He also talked about fixing the economy, that now we have retrenchment in, from places of work and all of that. And the food crisis, he linked it up with insecurity, and that may lead into the food crisis. Comrade Gabriel took us back that when the textiles were working, it cushioned the effect of the economy and, of course, provided jobs for citizens too. All of that have gone, and how to get them back, on what you've been saying.
Yeah, these are all areas that I've touched. One, yes. Public accountability, for example.
Yes.
There's this culture of lack of demand for accountability, by the masses, from the public officers. And that's why they act with impunity, because one, the control systems that are supposed to act as check on them are not functioning. For example, you have the National Assembly, you have the state assemblies that should act as a check on the executive, you have the judiciary that's supposed to act as a check on both executive and legislature. So you see, when a system does not check its leaders, then there will be impunity. Don't forget, a system that does not check its leaders means that those leaders have absolute powers. That's the meaning. The moment you are not being checked, which means, you have arrogated onto yourself absolute powers. And we know the concept of absolute power, it corrupts absolutely. So, and as it is now, the question is, if the parliament, cannot, perform this obligation of acting as a check on the executive, then what is next in line in terms of the control system? The people. But where people are impoverished, stomach infrastructure will not allow them, to be able to check, act as check onto the government. For example, the power of recall of members of assembly or parliament. How effective has that been used as a tool to checkmate docile or ineffectual representation? Because those who are supposed to exercise that power of recall are poor, they are hungry. So they have been diverted. Their attention is being diverted from the critical issues of governance to how to sustain themselves. Because we know that survival is the first law of nature. So when you are left to survival, then your mind is taken away. All what you want to do is survival. And you will gladly accept crumbs from your exploiters, from the slave drivers. So Nigeria has been turned, the mass has been turned into a herd community where the cattle owner continues to move his cattle based on his own whims and caprices and sell the ones he wants or kill the ones he wants. So I agree that what makes democracy thrive is the power of the people, sovereignty of the people, which partly can be exercised under the doctrine of public accountability. Then, going back to the issue of, a comparison with the PDP regime, you see, when we are talking about a political class, they have the same temperament, they have the same inclination. It's just that it manifests in different patterns. The destruction that comes with bad leadership manifests in different patterns. The kind of destruction that was under PDP manifested in a different pattern as of those of APC. So what we are saying is that the entire political structure that has been captured by the same political class, do not exhibit the kind of critical thinking and support for nationalism that are important ingredients in transforming a nation. They are self-serving, they are greedy, they are parochial, they are myopic. So they don't have the interests of Nigeria at heart, except their own interests and those of their cronies. If not, it's only in Nigeria that the elites will travel abroad to go and cure, tummy talk, or to go and cure headache, and abandon public medical institutions. So this is a clear testimony that they don't have the interest of people at heart. They can go abroad to seek for medication, and the masses can die of insignificant medical conditions that ordinarily should not kill people. Look at, to get a national career for the nation that will project the image of the nation. How beautiful is it? That you see here in Nigeria, flying all over the world. We are selling ourselves, we are announcing ourselves. The prestige, the honor of seeing our own airline operating, rendering services globally is something that does not, impress the elites. Rather, they go to patronize, other elites. And look at the humiliation that the Emirates Airlines is giving on to Nigeria. Look at the humiliation. Why is this happening? Because we don't have our own. We have to rely on other ones.
All right, bro. So, that may just be the size of it on the program. That's not much that we can take. We'd like to thank you, Prof, for coming on the program with us this morning.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. And that will just be the size of the program perspectives for this morning. And we're talking about ways to rejig the economy and make it profitable for the citizens and for the nation at large. Professor Yusuf Dankofa, a professor of law, Ahmadu Bello University, and a commentator on national and international matters, sharing thoughts with us this morning. Perspectives will come back tomorrow, same time, same station. Joy, thank you for connecting us with the people, and Wisdom, thanks for putting us in the pictures. Good morning.